we are back in Media Row, presented by Toyota, and we're sitting here in our Lazy Boy recliners. Long live the lazy, and I'm joined by Chris Myers of Fox Sports. Chris, it's great to see you.
And it's good to be here. Thanks for taking a moment to chat.
And what do we got going on here?
Well, you talk about a recliner chair. This is something I've used, and I highly recommend it. It's been around in locker rooms and gyms, people who want to stay in good physical shape, and professional athletes, but even people who just like to get out and run and release some tension. It's Mueller Sports, which they've been around for decades, and various innovations. But now there's home units that you can get, two different versions of. Just go to MuellerRevive.com. It's essentially sleeves that put on that will help you with deal with circulation, and there's modes of recovery and relaxation. So if you went out and ran all day and your legs are sore, you could use it to recover. If you want to relax and go to sleep, you can hook it up and set your own speeds or the level of intensity that you want. I've used it. My wife uses it, playing a lot of pickleball. She ran a marathon. She played tennis. And as you get a little older, the wear and tear, even if you're not an athlete, I've used it and I recommend it. They have a number of other products to help you with aches and pains, knee, ankle, shoulder, all that. But this is the one that the athletes use that's now available for us at home.
We might need that after Super Bowl week here at Moscone Center.
Yeah, you got to stretch your legs. So I would say check it out.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, you have such a recognizable voice. It is you have one of those voices where I don't need to see your face. I can immediately pick it out.
Well, that's nice of you to say. It's funny. I'll be at airports and even years, from ESPN and people hear the voice there and they aren't quite sure. Sometimes I'll get, whether it's Dan Patrick, Chris Fowler, I'll get a Chris Patrick or a Dan Fowler. Eventually, I'm just like, hey, thanks. As long as you're a sports fan and you know the voice. But I will tell you, man, my natural voice. I mean, yeah, I studied broadcasting and those types of things, but I was kind of blessed, just born with this, even as a kid. I mean, the voice was so deep and I just kind of shaped it for sports as I worked along in radio and in local TV in the business. So, but I'm thankful for that. But, my dad once won a Bing Crosby sing-along contest. He wanted to be a singer before he ended up working for the post office. But he always said, son, do something with that voice. And little did we know that it ended up being for sports.
Wow. Did your dad have that voice?
So, yeah, he had a pretty good, maybe not for announcing, but he had a great singing voice. Yeah, I wish you could have done something with that back in the day.
Yeah. You just, I look at this right here at Radio Row, and it's kind of a dog and pony show. Well, you are coming straight from a dog show.
Yes, and a bit of a dog and pony show the way I did it. Yeah, I got to call. This is fun. You do so many things after covering. I was telling you the World Series. I was in the Bay Area in '89, my rookie year at ESPN when that happened. So World Series, Super Bowls, covered the 49ers, Chargers, and a number of 49ers actually through the years. But the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, their 150th Best in Show, live from Madison Square Garden. And Tuesday night they crowned the Best in Show dog, which was a dog named Penny, a Doberman Pinscher. Bit of an upset in the eyes of some. But if you've seen the movie Best in Show, Catherine O'Hara recently passing away. So God bless her and her family. It's so real, it's comical. And I actually used that to help prep for this when I first got the assignment.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So you're covering, or you're calling a football game, you're calling a baseball game, and you go, oh, that's a bad call by the umpire. He was safe, or, oh, that should not have been, or that should have been pass interference, or whatever. Are you knowledgeable enough in dog shows where you can go, oh, what are the judges thinking?
Well, that's a good question. I have an analyst like you'd have a former player. I have a former judge and or handler who knows the dog. It's a lot better than me and the breeds. I can study him. But I'll say something like, boy, how did they pick the German Shepherd over the Poodle? And he'll say, well, the defined standard of the German Shepherd, you can see his coat is much more what the ideal German Shepherd has than this. So he'll explain it. But I wanted to just react like a viewer at home would react. Some of these things, I have notes, but I'm like, well, why does the tail shape that way? Or there's webbed feet. And they're like, well, that's because they were trained to swim. And so some of them are elementary, but I always think, man, of the people at home, whether I'm calling a game or doing an interview, some stuff is basic, but you don't want to leave anybody out of the conversation. Yeah. And even though we all love dogs, we all don't have purebred dogs that we have the time to take to dog shows and pamper, but we love them as part of our family, which is why I wanted to do it in the first place.
That's great. You mentioned 1989, covering that World Series. Where were you at the time of the Loma Prieta earthquake?
I was at Candlestick Park in the auxiliary Torrey press box, which was up and outside, because I was an ESPN reporter. Joe Torrey, believe it or not, was our guest analyst. He was in between managerial jobs with Chris Berman and Bob Lee, the legends of ESPN back in the day. And I had just been hired as a West Coast reporter and went through a minor earthquake down in L.A. when ESPN was just starting their bureau. So, they were the only game in town, and it's 24-hour sports. And when it hit, it was a jolt. We had thought that a plane had hit like maybe the back of, but Candlestick, was built into that bedrock. It was such a sturdy that we didn't realize it was that bad. I mean, you could see kind of what looked like the field rippling. Obviously, it didn't. It had that image. So we rushed down, and as the reporter, they're like, hey, right away, you cover this. I'll go. And I ran it. I think it was Tony LaRousse at the time, and Dusty Baker. I was trying to find, and I could see them scurrying, concern for their family in the stands. And that's when I knew, okay, this means a lot more, than maybe I realize, or those of us that aren't as experienced. And then later, obviously, the destruction across the entire area. And then I had to stay for the entire week to report daily on, first, the news part of it, and then would they play the World Series? Would it continue to go on? Faye Vincent, the commissioner back then, was very helpful in that regard. But it was tough staying. I was at the St. Francis Hotel, and the power was out, and it was just it was a scary time. But the city rallied, pulled through, and I thought it was important. I know sports is secondary when it comes to those kinds of events, and I've been around enough of them, but they always talk about helping the process of trying to get back, after something like that happens. So that's something that always stays with you.
Yeah, I mean, Candlestick Park was mighty maligned, and rightfully so.
Yes, for the kind of being outdated.
And everything. And, here during that time, a section of the upper deck of the Bay Bridge collapsed, and Candlestick Park did not.
Yes.
And I would imagine you covered any number of games in that ballpark or stadium for football. After that, you always had to think about that when you walked through there.
Yep, especially some great 49er games and wins there with, Steve Young and Montana. But it's funny, we had a shot, talk about Candlestick again, and it was difficult getting in and out of. But Chris Berman had a shot that we showed back then of a chair. I forget exactly where it was in the stadium in Candlestick that was kind of split in half. But nobody got hurt in that. I mean, in terms of it, but it was that sturdy that the chair could split, but at least the cement, the structure behind it, held up enough to save the person who might have been in danger.
Yeah, longtime broadcaster Chris Myers. You didn't cover any 49ers, or you didn't call any 49ers?
Not this year. I was disappointed because I'm a big Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, who I worked with. I actually broke John Lynch, and we did Buccaneers preseason TV before he went to Fox, and then, of course, into the front office. And I go back to covering the Niners as a West Coast reporter during the heyday of Montana and Rice, and I still stay in touch with Jerry Rice throughout the year. So I was disappointed. But Kyle Shanahan, I'm not just saying this because we're on here. People always ask me, hey, how are the production meetings, the coaches you deal with? And Kyle's one of my favorites because he really is straightforward. I mean, he'll tell you, and he trusts you that you won't use it on the air in an unprofessional way, but it helps us as the broadcasters deliver it to the audience. So I remember one time about a receiver goes, if this guy's in the game, don't worry, we're not going to throw to him because he's afraid to go over the middle, but just he'll block on the outside. And it's like, wow, that's I won't word it that way, and I'm not going to hang you out, coach. But at least we know if he's in there that okay, he's not in there to catch the football.
I'm assuming the list of coaches who are that forthright is probably a pretty small list.
It's a limited list. I can tell you, having covered Bill Belichick in Super Bowls, not so much. There's a few others, not to hang anybody out to dry, but there are a few others that are like Kyle, that once they know that they can trust you, they'll be more straightforward, because you're in a room, even though the cameras aren't rolling, there's a producer and a director in there and an analyst, and so he wants to make sure, hey, you're not going to say something that the day of the game or tweet it out, or that could hurt either a player or his relationship with the team and that type of thing. So you have to earn that trust, and then you have to honor it.
Well, what's your 35,000-foot view? I mean, I know you didn't see the 49ers
but I watched
this year from the 49ers. What did you think?
Well, I mean, the Mac Jones pickup and usage was, to me, a great story. I saw the year before, he did some games with Brock Purdy. I'm a fan and glad that worked out for the 49ers. Having Robert Saleh back was a nice thing, and unfortunate for the 49ers, but good for him that he he gets another chance to become a head coach. I thought they had it. I know the schedule was in their favor, but considering the injuries they had and the division all got better, I mean, for them to have made the playoffs and made the run and then knock out the defending champs in the way that they did, I mean, that's impressive. I know you want the big prize, and the 49ers from those years have a different standard, going back to the DeBartolo ownership days when I was around and got to watch them. But I like where they are. I mean, they're never an easy out, for no matter what the circumstances. And I hope the Purdy, that they can settle him long term and they get something, if Mac Jones, whatever, is to their value, and improve the defense and be as healthy as you can. I mean, and they'll be in the thick of it. I mean, Seattle and the Rams are good, and I don't know, Arizona, they seem further away from the pack. So as long as they're in contention and a chance for the big one, I think they're going to be okay. And Kyle Shanahan keeps grinding at it, so that's a good thing. I hope the defense can hang in there as well without Salah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten out much, but how do you think San Francisco's doing as a host city?
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and I love the city. I mean, they've cleaned up areas where I spend a little more time when I go to Santa Clara with the game, and sometimes we even stay over there. But I happen to stay in San Francisco on this trip, and I like this setup. I know it's a little smaller, more condensed, but it's really easy access, easy to get to for people in this area, easy from the airport to help promote the game and the city. I mean, people know San Francisco's a great city for all of the other issues that go on. Whenever I came here for a sporting event through the years, I've always enjoyed it. We know the food's great, but for me too, the people have been great too, and some really cool fans from going back to even the Oakland A's and that when they battled, and we would stay in San Francisco to cover the A's.
Well, Chris, hey, thanks so much for stopping by. I've long admired your voice, and more importantly, I've long admired the work you've done as a broadcaster. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Seen your work when I've been in the Bay Area through the years. I'm glad to have you keep doing this. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.